Welcome to Crowning Around, where every woman wears a crown, whether she's 17 or 70. I'm Joan Caliendo, and this is the space where magic happens when women empower women. Each week, we'll dig into topics like ageism, stepping into your power, and everything in between. And today, we're kicking it all off with a queen in her own right. Me, Ms. New York Senior America.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to episode 20. I am delighted to have with me a dear lifelong friend, Miss Chris Ceruti, who traveled all the way from Sarasota, Florida, to come to be on the show this evening. I suggested a Zoom, but she was not having it, and we're going to turn this into a love fest and a dinner fest and a fun fest. So get ready to unpack all of the greatness that is my guest this evening. We're going by the expression that she is the queen of diamonds because she has done incredible things for women's athletics, particularly softball. And we're going to get into all of the ways in which she has empowered young women and people in committees and Section 8 athletics in Nassau County. And we're going to really delve into the power of women in sports and the significance of it, why it's so important for young women to be honored as athletes. So let's start with the idea that she traveled here, which is very commonplace for her because Chris Ceruti taught with me at Carle Place High School in Nassau County and drove every day from her home in Shoreham, Wading River, which was over an hour and a half drive, and stayed for every game and was on the bus at 9 o'clock in the morning if kids were traveling. And so she is accustomed to many miles. So this is no different. I want to begin by saying that she is one of the women I looked up to as we worked together. She went from being a PE teacher to an administrator and was finally serving as my athletic director for the last 16 years of her career. And I just want to publicly thank her for her years of dedication and sportsmanship and class and integrity, which is the way she held that position for so many years. And we're going to unpack a lot of different things. So if you don't mind, let me give you a brief bio of my guest. First of all, she was a D1 athlete, not only in softball, but also in basketball at LIU Brooklyn campus. And that's where she attended college with her identical twin sister, Lynn. So let's take a look at that lovely photograph. Yeah, that's the image that we will always remember of you and your twin sister, Lynn, who passed. Both of them athletes. Chris would be the first one to say Lynn was the more academic, but Chris was certainly the sportier one and the more of an athlete. And she went on a scholarship, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, and how she was given that gift of education because of her athletic prowess. She served as an educator for 32 years. 16 of those were as athletic director at Carle Place High School. She created the softball program. That's a picture of her coaching at the softball field at Carle Place. And when she retired, we all put on those visors and put on fake blonde poofs because that was what we were accustomed to seeing her look like on the daily. And not only did she begin the program, for which she coached 21 years, but she also took these ladies to league championships, conference championships, and county championships, which was unheard of, at this tiny little district called Carle Place. She was inducted into the Carle Place Hall of Fame, as well as, this is a big deal, folks, the Nassau County Hall of Fame, where there are likes of, professional athletes from James
Naismith.
and James Colligan, who was our former athletic director. And it is an honor beyond honors because I was saying James Brown, it sounded like the singer. I meant Jim Brown from Manhasset. So I want to clarify that. She was nominated and then was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2023, which is a beyond honor for any athletes and administrators and people who made a difference in Nassau County athletics. She was the chair of, I can't name all the committees that she has served on, traveling from Albany to Suffolk to Nassau County. And she specifically changed Section 8 athletics, which I mentioned the last show, including allowing for cheerleading to become a sport, which is near and dear to my heart, in 2016, and initiating that for all of New York State Section 8 participating in that, which allowed my daughter to win coveted awards as a result of being a cheerleader, and I was the coach. She is the mother of 3 sons and the grandmother of 4, soon to be 5. If you could put up that picture of those lovely dear children that she supervises on the daily at her home in Florida. Look at those kids. Look at how adorable they are. And she and her husband of 38 years, Henry, reside together in Sarasota, Florida, but they took the whole family with them. So the mothers and fathers of those beautiful children and their in-laws and Chris's mother and her brother all relocated when you retired. And they have made a beautiful life for themselves in Florida. And we welcome her this evening from her long journey. This is the Queen of Diamonds, Miss Chris Ceruti.
Well, that introduction, I cannot believe
all
it.
true.
Well, listen, the reality of it all is that Joan is the OG of everything. So she says that I'm her mentor, but the reality is she's always been a mentor and a friend. And I feel it's an honor and a privilege to be here, sitting beside her. We went through close to 30 years of our career together, watching our kids grow, and really being involved in athletics, and that's the key here. And her daughter was one of the most, and son were one of the most amazing athletes to go through Carle Place. So I feel privileged not only to know her, but and her kids as well. So
well, she represented us all beautifully.
Yeah,
so
I
decided that tonight's show, that's some bio, would be a reflection of what it means to empower young women through athletics. And Chris, is the example of that. But she also played a stellar role in making sure that the legislation remained intact for young girls today. So I'm going to put on my history hat for a brief moment and start with a little bit of information that some people, that are listening may not be aware of. So we're going to go back to 1973, right? So is everyone in the room alive in 1973? Okay, so we have 2 guests with us tonight, one of whom was not even born. But the 3 of the 4 of us were born in 1973 when the federal government enacted something called Title IX legislation. And in Title IX legislation, it was an attempt to create equality for women in sports, where there had been a tremendous, differential between what boys were given and how they got through school, et cetera. So I even said to Chris, your scholarship was as a result of the fact that Title IX was enforced at LIU. So my question is, how have you seen the pendulum swing in favor of women's athletics since then?
Well, we've come a long way, and the truth of the matter is we still have a long way to go.
Sure.
When I started playing in high school and college, it was in the late 80s. You're talking about being at least several years of having Title IX, and to give me a full ride to play in a D1 school, scholarship, books, board, everything covered. But then I realized as we're playing is that, we're still raking our own softball field. We're driving our vans as a D1 program, driving our vans to schools. We didn't fly, so if you were playing out of state, you got on the road early, and that's what we did. So when I say I was privileged to have a scholarship,
yes,
I was. But things have changed certainly since then. But there was a disparity, and it's the resources, it's the facilities, it's the support. It was there, but it had a long way to go. So I think being a coach, being an athletic director, watching the numbers of participation of women athletes
through the roof,
watching the number of teams that we've added, and I don't just mean locally, I mean on the state. When you think in the last couple of years, besides cheerleading being one of them, women's wrestling now, we have women's flag football. So we're moving in the right direction on the high school level, and I do think our expectations are different.
I agree.
We are. I feel like we're just giving young athletes a sense of confidence because we're saying that, listen, you can do this, but let's see where it's going to go there. Now, you said whether it's a pendulum shift.
The pendulum shift,
I don't know if it's so much more of a shift, but more moving in the right direction, because when you think of pendulum, it goes wide. I think we're narrowing the differential between the two, but I think a lot more work needs to be done in leadership, in representation, in visibility, in really a consistent investment in women's sports. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on and where we've come and where we're gone. But I do see change.
I do too.
And I think it's been I think the young generation sometimes don't realize
Right.
where we were
Right.
and
The
where we are
inroads
now.
that had to be made.
Exactly.
Yes,
So.
and we are, so there are 4 educators in the room right now. I will put the picture up in a minute of the 4 women that are here right now, my dear friends. But when we started at Carle Place, right? I'm 89. You came in the 90s. You know, the team to be on was field hockey because we heard of girls getting scholarships to big schools, Harvard, Brown, et cetera, if you played field hockey, of which I didn't even know what that was. I saw girls in Catholic school uniforms with a stick. I thought they were golfing. I didn't know. They didn't play that in Brooklyn. Right. A, no grass. B, we wore Catholic school uniforms for other reasons. So there was no softball. Right.
Yeah, so that's where I was blessed. So when I got hired as a phys ed and health teacher in the Carle Place School District, they said the first thing they said, "Would you start a softball program?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's next to basketball. It's my second favorite thing." It ended up becoming my favorite. And I remember the biggest thing is like, let's start it next year in a varsity level. And I said, "We can't do that. You want to build a program? Right. Give me a 7th grade team, an 8th grade team." Then I moved it to a JV team, and by the time the 4th year, we were a county team. I mean, a varsity level team, and we won a first county championship. And then we just spent the next years being successful. I had the same athletes play on my team for almost 5 or 6 years.
From 7th and 8th grade.
But I had a wonderful feeder program. And I think that's another whole conversation about feeder programs in towns and things like that too, because the support is there. It's just as long as we have to not burn out children by the time they're 12 and 13 with all this travel ball. You want my opinion? Athletes that are specialized sometimes have a disadvantage. Athletes that play multiple sports have an advantage in the long run.
Agree.
So I think the change is there.
I mean, that's a key right there, feeder programs. So Carle Place is a small district, 100 kids basically per grade level. So, you're drawing from the same lot constantly and consistently. And the softball player is also in the band, and she's also the star of the show, and she's also taking 5 AP classes. So we really saturated these kids. Very enriching on one level, very exhausting on another level. But when it came to athletics, and I think we can attest to this, and you probably have statistics better than I do, we saw the girls getting scholarships, much more so than the boys. The girls took the ideas and ran with it, that if they were scholar athletes, right, that they would be able to get aid, not necessarily full scholarships, but aid to go to school. They set up a program called the Channel 12 Scholar Athletes. It's definitely more girls than boys. Another argument could be made that some of our top athletes go to Catholic school, right?
There's a transfer
so
rate,
we would lose some of the cream that was trying to go to St. Anthony's or Chaminade, and maybe they didn't even play. So that was another reason why some people stayed. So there's a lot of factors and statistics, but my point is when I go down that wall of fame and I look at all the athletes post 1990, it's more females than males.
Yeah.
So that's what I meant. Pendulum started to swing in the direction to help and aid the girls.
I agree.
Okay. So now here's another interesting question. From your years as an athlete and then as a coach, what is the value of women participating in sports programs? Now, that's such a general question, but if you could give me the top 3 things that you think girls benefit the most from by participating in sports.
Well, honestly, I could probably give you 100 things, but we'll narrow it down to 3. And I think one kind of builds upon another. So first, I would definitely say confidence and self-belief.
Agree.
Second, I would say probably leadership and teamwork.
Agree.
And then my third probably would be resilience and life skills. So
okay, let's tap into each one. So confidence. Why is that so important for young girls?
Because I think for a lot of young girls, we're pushing them outside of their comfort zone. Sometimes girls say, okay, I'm really comfortable doing this, but now I'm going to try this. I don't know if I'm so comfortable with it. So I think by competing, by leading, by sometimes bouncing back from failure. Because, I think we don't mention that in sports. It's not really about the wins and losses sometimes. It's about, there's a lot more to it. But I do think by doing that, it gives them a little bit more sense of confidence in themselves and a belief in themselves. So that I definitely think is really the number one thing.
Agree.
And I think what happens is then you carry it over. Right. So for young girls, it starts on the field, but then it goes into their classroom, and then it goes maybe down to their careers, and then I think it's life. I think it's a stepping stone for that. The second would be the leadership and skills. I mean, listen, everybody will know that whether it's a boy or even a girl, the key is communication in life. You can speak well, you can get your feelings and thoughts across. I think it makes life easier for you if you can do that. I think there's accountability to what you do.
Right.
I think athletes need to understand sometimes they need to work towards something bigger than themselves.
Agree.
Being part of a team, that's where I said the teamwork skills. Maybe my role, maybe I'm not the starting shortstop and the best player on the team. Maybe I'm the right fielder, I bat ninth. But you know something? That right fielder who's batting ninth is just as important. Why?
Absolutely.
Because I think as long as we give athletes clear expectations of what we know they're capable of and then give them guidelines how to become better, they may never be that D1 athlete. But you know something? Less than 1% are.
Yeah.
It's even less than that now. But at least it gives them an opportunity to participate. It gives them to give those life skills that they need. So that would be the second.
Okay, hold on. We have to unpack that for a second.
Okay.
So I have to talk a little shop. We would all have to sit in faculty meetings every Monday, sit in faculty meetings. Some of them were incredibly exciting. Most of them were not. You could tell in a room of 60 educators which people participated in sports versus the people that didn't. How?
Because I think they were probably listening.
Yeah. Listening.
Because I think they even though they probably wanted to be probably out on the field coaching by then, but they
Or
realized
driving home.
they realized the value of what's being said, even though it may not be as important of what's going on in their lives at that moment, but they're giving that respect to their teammate.
Like a coach, like you're listening. Okay, second way, when it came to collaboration, okay, we're going to create some groups. Oh, for God's sakes, not groups. Don't put me in a group. I don't even like this person. I have lunch in the bathroom. I choose not to go to the faculty room. It was so obvious to me.
But
these people didn't participate in anything.
But that was the comfort zone.
Yeah.
See, athletes learn to get out of the
Yes.
comfort zone. If you
Yes.
don't do that, that's uncomfortable for people. We think that, first of all, listen, we're sitting here in front of a mic talking. More comfortable for the two of us than it might be for somebody else. Same thing would be in that faculty room. Somebody might have no problem getting in front of up there and speaking, and some people will not. So I think that and I do truly believe that not being an athlete, but being part of athletics, there's a difference. Because I think being part of athletics is so much more important. Because we know that many athletes are athletes to their ability. Everybody has a different level of ability, and your goal is always to improve yourself, not compare yourself to somebody else.
Right.
And that's where we lose kids sometimes.
Okay, another point. When you go on interviews, and I've said this to so many kids, and they're looking through your resume, and people are exaggerating on their resume, and they have beautiful resumes, and some of them are stellar students, and we get it. When they look down and they see the sports and multi-sports for many kids that you participated in, what do you think it says to the person that you're pursuing a job with? You're flexible. You're a teammate. Oh, here's the key. You're a collaborator. And I'll say this as well. If you talk to kids that have jobs now, they're 25 years old, everybody talks about, oh, that's what we're doing on my team. Do you hear that language now?
All the time.
You never heard that language in the 90s. It was, I have to work for JP Morgan. Oh, I feel bad for you. You have to go into the financial world. What a slug. But now you hear them saying, well, my team is benefiting from the work that I'm doing.
Yes.
That's the mentality that sports gives to you. And for young women, which I don't want to say, oftentimes when they go into certain worlds and certain fields, is very male dominated. Like a Megan Colligan that I spoke to and, was formerly the vice president of IMAX. She said she would walk into a boardroom that had 50 people in it and she was the only female. And I said, well, how did you survive? She said, I was an athlete. I was used to sitting down and collaborating and creating teamwork, and I was never intimidated.
Listen, no different than me being an athletic director. How many women athletic directors there
how
are?
many are there?
Well, Nassau County has 57 high schools, and I would say probably 5. And Suffolk County has 61 schools, and I think there's maybe 4. So it's
like
you're
the
right.
Senate.
It's like walking in a room and certainly be a female athletic director. But there are more because again, I think we're moving in the right direction of saying that it's okay. Women are not secondary in athletics.
Agree.
We think that men are primary, women are secondary. I think we're losing. Like I said, we could talk about this a little bit more later. I know there's other questions, but I think we're moving to more of an equality, and that is the pendulum shift.
Yeah, that is the shift. Okay, so the third thing you said was resilience, and I don't want to skip over that because we can all attest to the fact that we are seeing children that are becoming less resilient, right, as the years have gone on. And, you know, I don't want to get political, but I'm tired of people saying things, oh, you're an educator, you must be woke. That's not what it means to be an educator. And I don't like when they refer to children as snowflakes. I don't like that. You live in Florida. That's probably not an analogy that you hear. But we see and we know that the resilience has diminished. What does sports do for women, particularly, that balances that out?
You know what? It's similar to life. I think what happens is, you know, everybody wants to step on a field and be the best they can be.
Of course.
So you have your gymnast who'll get on that balance beam and make a fall. This is, you know, you see that in the NCAAs when you just saw the competition just a couple of weeks ago. They fall.
Yeah, it happens.
So what can they do? They could sit there and say, I can't do this anymore. They can say, you know what? I'm getting up there. I'm getting on that balance beam, and I'm going to continue my routine, and maybe I may not get my perfect score. That is resilience. Nobody wants to get injured. Nobody wants to get hurt when they're participating. But how many athletes, even in Carle Place, where, you know, they're going on to the next level playing in college, and they tear the ACL. So what do? They rehab, they do whatever they can do, and they get themselves back and start over again. So I think that's the resilience. It's knowing that you can fail, but it doesn't mean that failure is a lifelong thing. It could be a moment. It could be a couple of weeks. Then you pick yourself back up again and you do it all over again. And maybe it's not athletics. Maybe it's you find another passion somewhere else. It doesn't have to be that. But I think that's the resilience that, again, that's the whole winning and losing again. It's not really, should never be about winning and losing, but it is. Sometimes it is.
So the role models in this room are all pictures of resilience, right?
Yep.
So you would come to work pregnant 3 different times, running onto a field like, I had the baby last weekend. What? And you're back? Yeah. My other 2 colleagues that are here, multiple knee injuries, you know, sitting with her leg up on the desk and, you know, speaking Spanish to small children and icing at the same time, also driving over an hour and 15 minutes. Single mom, does everything under the sun for her one son and shows up every day and is never late, and the muffins are wonderful. So I have to say,
that is the definition of resilience.
The women in this room right now are the pictures of resilience, and we modeled that for the girls. We certainly modeled that for the girls. And I mean, come on, we could easily go on any social media platform and see examples of the ladies that we taught and go, wow. These are amazing women now and have become resilient mothers, professionals, etc. So I do think that sports lends itself to that. And I'm glad you picked those 3 things because those are life skills. That's not just a sports thing. So another thing I wanted to mention, when it comes to sports and females versus males, and you were the athletic director, equal funding for everybody, or football gets the most money because they have the most equipment?
So yes, there's some, and in all fairness, I would start my budget the same number.
Okay.
So yes, it was always started the same. Now, certain sports, my football program is going to cost way more than my cross country. So I have to say that because they still needed uniforms. But
Mike Nickel on a bicycle leading them.
But they didn't need any other equipment.
Right.
You know, the track was there. So, so individual sports did cost more, but in the long run, the same amount of money was spent. That was a guarantee.
Okay, so that was fair. But certain coaches got more money than other coaches.
Again, sports specific.
Please tell.
So I will tell you that a boys lacrosse and the girls lacrosse coach got paid the same. The
Amen.
only time it would be different if there was a longevity. So if I had my female coach there 5 years and they hit the longevity, they would get a bonus. I mean, that's our district. Other districts do it very
Everybody's
differently.
independent.
I can definitely just speak on what we do. So yes, cross country, whatever softball, baseball matched. So yes, that did happen.
Did we have as many female sports as we did male sports?
Yes.
We did.
We did.
Amazing.
We worked hard to do that.
And remember, this is small pickings. We don't have that many kids to fill the positions in all of these sports. Newest sports added to Carle Place would be, do we have flag football? We do not. Volleyball?
Boys middle school.
Boys middle school volleyball. Amazing. All 4'6" 7 of these kids are slamming away at the volleyballs. Okay, I'm feeling pickleball's coming, but that's a whole other story.
You know, it's
We'll
so
get to
funny.
that.
We talk about pickleball so much.
It's
We
going to
do.
be in the Olympics.
But let me tell you something. Back in the, let's see, early 90s, it was part of our 8th grade physical
I
education
heard
curriculum.
that. I heard
I used
that.
to teach that.
I heard that.
And the reason why we did it is because, especially when it was an indoor sport,
Right.
we were able to, just like when we did badminton, create the smaller courts.
Right.
So you can get more students participating. So it was a very popular sport for many, many years. It's
Yes.
just the trend is there now.
The trend is for seniors now.
Yes,
and,
now
we,
it's-
and we love it. Not seniors in high school, senior citizens. Because when I started at Carle Place, one of the units was square dancing.
Oh, yes. Good Marilyn Schnoz.
And we heard those songs on and on
Yes.
and on, and the kids loved it.
That was my first year in Carle
Okay,
Place.
you remember.
I remember. Well, I said, okay, we're doing the tennis and the soccer and
yeah.
the softball and all the team
And-
sports. And she says, no, we're going to start with rhythm gymnastics. We're going to start with pyramid building. And we're going to be, and I was like, oh, I don't remember learning that in college. So I guess I'm going to learn real quick how to do this. But yes.
It worked.
And it worked.
I do remember them juggling scarves too,
Yes.
but that's a whole other
Yes.
story. Look, coordination, it worked.
Yep, it definitely did work.
All right, we're going to take a break for a brief moment. And when we come back, Bobby, if you could put up the photo of the ladies that were at the Hall of Fame dinner for Chris, we'll start with that. So enjoy these commercials. We'll be right back.
For seniors and their families seeking clarity, stability, and confidence in their financial future, trusted guidance makes all the difference. Rely on experience that puts your long-term well-being first. Edward Jones, Office of Boris Mikhail. This segment has been sponsored by the local Edward Jones office of Boris Mikhail. To schedule a complimentary consultation, call 516-962-2874.
Ever felt stuck with a home that just doesn't feel right anymore? Whether it's that outdated kitchen or the bathroom that needs a refreshed look, Twice as Nice Construction has got you covered. Family owned for over 20 years. Twice as Nice Construction has been providing beautiful new construction and additions and stunning remodels like kitchens and bathrooms. We're not just experts. We offer unbeatable quality and prices to help make your dream come true. Ready to start building your dream home or to give your kitchen and bathroom that much needed makeover? Contact Twice as Nice today and make your dream a reality. Visit twiceasniceremodel.com today for quality you can see and service you can trust. Twice the value, twice the commitment, Twice as Nice.
Hello and welcome back. We're sitting here this evening with my dear friend, Miss Chris Ceruti, Hall of Famer. And I want to mention that because 2 visitors are here in the studio with us, Miss Fallick and Mrs. Dornicek. And there's a picture of the 4 of us when Mrs. Ceruti was inducted into the Nassau County Hall of Fame. And, you know, we have been showing up for each other for years. And it's a testament to the relationship that we all forged, you know, as each one of us joined the Carle Place community. But so proud of her that evening that I had to show that because there are 2 visitors here with us this evening. They're being very quiet, and I appreciate that. So we're going to move on with the Queen's Court and some of the questioning, and I'm going to get another, you know, a bit historical once again because that's what I do, funny and history. This is how I've survived. So the biggest issue in female sports today is pay equity. Okay, that's the biggest issue. In 2022, the national soccer team, the U.S. national soccer team, the ladies, demanded fairness, and they won their lawsuit. And from this point forward, the national teams, both men and women, are paid fairly. And they took that all the way up to the highest court levels, and they fought for their rights because if I don't want to compare their games won and lost, but the women have won the World Cup more than twice, and the men, no bueno. So I don't want to say that that's a factor, but it did come down to, you know, fair equity and pay. Now the WNBA, we're seeing stars emerge in the WNBA. You cannot ignore the fact that Caitlin Clark has changed the landscape for basketball. We cannot deny that. So the people who are hating on her or pushing her or not happy that she gets a lot of the limelight and a lot of commercials, you should be thanking her for putting basketball on the map, because now women's basketball is very, very highly attended. Young girls are going to see those games much more often than some of the NBA games. So my question is, what has to get better? I mean, how are we going to create pay equity in a world where men's sports is still so far more revered than women's?
Well, first of all, it's an excellent question, but
Thank
there's
you.
a few layers to it.
Okay.
First of all, there has to be an investment. There
Okay.
needs to be visibility.
Agree.
See, you can't, you wonder why they're not getting paid, but it's because they're also not being seen. So I think it's the first step if we, change the visibility. That's marketing, promotion,
Yes.
the media coverage. If they do that, people will show up.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. I mean, we talked about the WNBA. This year alone, there are to the schedule. There'll be 216 games nationally televised.
It's a big deal.
Huge. Of course, 44 of them will definitely be Indiana Fever because Caitlin Clark is coming back from an injury.
Yes.
So that has definitely helped because, who doesn't love watching an athlete take 6-pointers? I know there are only 3, but she takes them from
I know.
6.
She's from the logo.
So, and even when Paige got drafted, Dallas has got 36 games being covered this year. So I think
Paige
that's
Buchers,
happening.
yes, yes.
And NBC Sports finally, since 2002 now, is bringing women's sports back to primetime TV.
Nice.
So keep in mind, it's not just your streaming. That's a huge milestone.
Okay.
Second thing we need is long-term commitment.
All right.
And what does that really mean? It can't just be about the Caitlin Clarks. It has to be about all the female athletes in every sport, in every league, getting visibility. If they get that and media commits to them, I think we'll see a huge difference. And we're definitely doing that. I mean, when you see the FIFA World Cup, the Women's Soccer League, and the even just watching the women's tennis too, but even just watching the NCAA Women's Championship.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people watch that?
No, I'm sure.
9.9 million people.
Wow.
All right, so you're saying people start watching. When people start watching, then people start going to games and they start being more involved. I think I did look up this because everybody knows I'm terrible in math, but I did look this up.
Same.
46 billion minutes last year to women's sports. So we are definitely moving there. And my third, I think, most important thing, we need to change the mindset.
Okay.
We need to value women sports as just as important as anything else. And I do think it's shifting because we have much more talent out there. There's much more competitiveness, and the entertainment value is there. So we're seeing it. Now we just need the consistency of it all. And I think if we move in that direction, it will happen. So pay equality is an issue, but that's the surface. But I think underneath all that, it's about all the things I just mentioned: visibility, investment, and belief in women's sports. And if you get that, we will certainly move in the right direction. It's funny, I follow Just Women's Sports, and that's how I stay updated on what's happening on the collegiate level all the way up to the professional level. And they're starting a new Project B in the off season for women in sports. What it is, it's going to be a new global league, and it'll showcase women across the world. So we're not just talking, in North America. We're talking about
Europeans, South
and
America.
most athletes that go play overseas, it's 8 months to a year commitment.
Right.
A lot of our athletes don't really want to do that because families and things like
Yeah,
that. So
sure.
now you're talking about just doing a couple of week program where they can go home and come back. So I think we're moving in the right
and
direction.
just to that point, like a Brittany Griner traveled to Russia to play basketball, whether you like her or not, or her politics and the things that she said. I'm not asking you that. She was being paid so much more to play in Russia than she was being paid in the WNBA.
Right.
So that's why she was going overseas, and it's just very interesting, that our country is not. And we created basketball, we invented it, and it's just very interesting to me.
So, but you're correct. So I think we're trying to kind of build that gap between, getting, again, it's not just in North America, we're talking about other places globally, Europe, Asia. And I think it's the athletes can go in, play, and come out and still be able to play in the WNBA without saying you have to make a choice or NCAA or move on. So I think but there are other organizations. You got Athletes Unlimited now who showcase girls lacrosse. They do 3-on-3 basketball. they're definitely doing softball. You have a professional women's hockey league now.
Right? Weren't
which
we
is doing,
supporting that in the
Yes,
Olympics? We were so
were.
happy for those girls.
So I think we're moving in the right
Okay, I
direction.
love it.
That Project B program, F1
Love it.
program is going to
Didn't
be
know
good.
about that. That's
and I
great.
think that's again the visibility. You
Love
get the
it.
visibility, athletes get recognized for their talent,
Yep.
and I think that's the direction we will be moving in.
All right, so this is what made me think of this. So when I watch the Olympics, which is on all the time, if it's an Olympic year, from morning to night, I'm watching skeet shooting. It's not skeet shooting. What is that? The biathlon where they
Yes.
ski. And I don't even know what it is. And I'm watching it. The curling, I'm watching it. Here's my issue. When I watch the Olympics in the winter, can't wait for the ice skating. Nobody can say different. Everybody's waiting to see America's sweetheart be born, right? Alyssa Liu walked away with it.
Absolutely, yeah.
If she doesn't do, stars on ice and make a lot of money on endorsements, she's not making a lot of money. When we get to the Summer Olympics, I can't wait to see the gymnasts, right? Simone Biles. Oh my God, I can't wait to hang on every toe on that balance beam. If she doesn't get all the endorsements for the fact that she's the most decorated female athlete in that sport, then she's also got no career to make money. So I think what I'm saying is, cyclically, every 4 years, we get the Olympic buzz. But the athletes that make the gazillions of dollars, which are really soccer players internationally, make way more than our football and baseball and hockey players.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have female sports that are like, they have that visibility, the gymnasts and the ice skaters, but they don't have a sport that lends itself to longevity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I also think, honestly, gymnastics is ice skating, tough sport.
Short-lived.
It's short. It's very tough. Yeah. I mean, you could run up and down a court. I mean, listen, look at LeBron James.
I know,
He could
41.
Prove he could run up and down a court.
Right.
I think a gymnast, the toll that a gymnast and an ice skater.
True.
It's not a. It's
no longevity.
It's no longevity. It's a sport that doesn't allow for that. So I think that's why you'll see
You're right.
that, as much as it's beautiful to watch, but I think that's the reason why you're not seeing it.
You're right.
That's why your cheerleaders, and that's why your gymnasts, and that's why your ice skaters and all are probably your best athletes.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of commitment
Yes.
and time, and in the
Yes.
gym,
Yes.
it's very different.
We know that, right?
So it is
and
very
it wasn't
different.
recognized for years, so amen that it has been.
Yep.
Okay, so we got all that off of our
Yes.
chests. Okay, so here's the point of the show, which is oftentimes the most difficult to answer question, because it's the tiara tip of the week, which means, aside from all of the points that we raised, and you did a great job explaining everything to our viewers, you have an expansive career as an educator, as a coach, as a mother, as an administrator. What would you say was the greatest contribution you made that you think made the biggest difference in your career?
We're not talking about my children.
Not your children.
Okay, if I take my children away from that.
Which I like that you said that. Thank you.
Well, because I just want to make sure that, career versus family. And I think the hardest part for women
Is
to this
balance.
day is balancing a career, balancing children, and balancing just everyday life. So
Sure.
I would say, and maybe people will be surprised, starting a softball program at Carle Place and
Okay.
building a program and watching these little 12 and 13-year-olds become my 17, 18-year-olds and walk out on a New York State championship. And that to me is probably, if you ask me, one of my best gifts that I've given is coaching these young girls all these years. And I'll give you an example.
Please.
Right now at Carle Place, Alyssa Bruckner is the varsity coach.
Oh.
Alyssa Bruckner.
We all taught her.
We
yes.
all taught her. What an amazing young woman, married, children now.
Mm-hmm.
She was on my 2005 state championship. Not win. We didn't win. But listen, a win is sometimes going to the state level and just experience it all. And she was an 8th grader going into 9th grade that year. And all she said to me is, one day I want to do this.
Said that.
She told me, one day I want to teach. It wasn't going to be phys ed. It might be something else. But I want to teach, and I want to coach, and I want to give back like you've given back to all these athletes. I'm proof that it can happen. And I said, and I see it all. We all see as educators. Our kids come back and they you don't realize the impact
Right.
you made.
Right.
Sometimes they don't even realize the impact until they actually leave.
Right.
they'll come back and say, you don't realize you were the most important person in my life at that, even if it was only for a year or 2 or 3 or even 4. We were 7 to 12 district. It could have been even for 5 or 6 years.
Right.
The impact you make, knowing that even as an AD, and I coached for many years as I was the athletic director, to know that my door was always open.
And
that any athlete, teacher, anybody could walk in there and say, do you have a minute? I would stop what I'm doing, and it didn't matter who asked me to do something. Stop what I did, because sometimes athletes just need you to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Not give advice, not tell them what to do, but listen. And then I would kind of guide them for them to figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
And they could do it. So if you ask me what is my best experience is coaching, walking out on that field every day, loving the game that was so good to me.
Right.
You know, I didn't start playing organized ball until I was in 10th grade. And within 1 year, I was being offered scholarships, and I've never even did anything organized ever. It's just where we grew up. I didn't have
grew up in Queens.
I didn't have the privilege.
Right.
There was no travel teams. I didn't have all that. So when somebody said, I believe in you, my high school softball coach said, you want to go play on the next level? I went, what? I'm going to work. I don't even know sure if I'm going to school. That's where I was. And I'm like, I have an opportunity to go to school. Wait a minute, and play?
Right.
Really? Can I do that? And they're like, yeah, you're skilled enough. I'm like, okay. And it ended up being the best years of my life. And the first thing I said when I graduate, I want to teach. I want to coach. Did I think I was going to be an administrator down the road? I'm like, not me. But honestly, another best decision I made.
It fell into your way.
It fell into my way.
It was great.
And I was blessed.
So I have to share a funny story about Chris coming to a cheerleading competition. So you couldn't get more opposite than the two of us when it comes to sports. So when cheer became a sport in 2016, she goes, I'm going to come to your next competition. And I was sharing a gym with the basketball team, Mr. John Cantwell, who said, if he hears me one more time, count 5, 6, 7, 8, he might have to choke me. But that's, part of the routine with the dancing. Okay. So, we would split the gym, but he could hear my music and me counting. So she said, I'm going to show up and I'm going to come to the cheering competition. And she sat there in awe. Now, she knew how hard the girls worked because we were there till 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, and who fell and who didn't fall. And, and if somebody was out, you had to rearrange everything. It's not easy. And she came and, we didn't win first place. I think we came in third. And she said, I have never seen such a teamwork effort in my life. And I am blown away by how these girls, I don't know what they're saying and asking us to do. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's white, sometimes it's go, sometimes it's fight. But you saw the gel, right, of what it takes to put together those routines. And I have to say to you that the girls were so thrilled that you came that day, because it gave them the value that for years they never had. Not that past athletic directors didn't show up. They certainly did, to ask us to be quiet. That's another story. But when you showed up at competition, it meant the world to them, and it validated their sport. And I just wanted you to know that was really, really something. So I would say I agree with you. After all the years of teaching, 39 years of teaching, the most rewarding thing was watching young women come together on your team and creating a bond that lasts a lifetime. And to have Alyssa step into your shoes, how rewarding is that?
Very rewarding. And that, I always say that your belief in yourself sometimes doesn't always come within. It comes from the people that you surround yourself with.
Amen.
So whether it's the 4 people in this room or whether it was wherever we were, people believing in you just helps you believe in yourself.
Agree.
And there are days, listen, we go through life. There are days you're like, oh my goodness,
Traffic.
what am I doing?
Oh my God,
what am I doing?
It's raining.
It's for me, it's not ever a bad hair day because every day is a bad hair day. But you know what you say to yourself, it doesn't really matter.
Wash and wear.
Doesn't make this is what it's going to look like. But I truly believe when people show up for people, it's that's an empowerment within itself.
Yes, agree.
And I think that's why I think we had such an amazing bond.
We did. We
all
had a
these
great
years.
run.
And I think that's why young women that saw us in our roles, even in our little tiny little district, that's happening everywhere. That's happening everywhere. Women are encouraging women to continue to be strong, resilient people. And I think it's showing and I believe it's showing.
It's showing.
It's showing. I think it is.
And another moment that I have to share, we would do. I taught a women's studies class, and each year at the end of the semester, we would do a program called Women of Distinction. And the young ladies in the class, and gentlemen, there were gentlemen in the class too. They were there to meet women. That's a whole other story. But the curriculum lent itself to the fact that they could pick someone. It didn't have to be a teacher. Many girls pick their moms, right, or coaches, and bring them in to say that they valued them and that they were the person that they respected the most, to honor them. And each one of the women in this room have been in my classroom honored, for those contributions. And when Mrs. Ceruti would sit down and talk, she was so frank and so honest, to the point where we were like, maybe you shouldn't reveal that much. But what she was trying to say to the young girls was, I've had ups and downs. I've had rough situations in my life. I didn't come from a situation where there was money for travel teams or things along those lines. I went to a public school in Queens, and here I am in the lap of luxury at Carle Place High School, educating all of you girls. And they hung on every word she said, because when you become an administrator, they kind of get far removed from the fact that you're a human being. And it was always the highlight of my year to have that panel of women of distinction. And someone would always pick Chris Ceruti to come in and talk about her life experiences. So I thank you again for coming today. We're going to enjoy a good dinner right after this. But I have to talk about my next episode, which will be in 2 weeks.
All right, before you do that.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
From the bottom of my heart.
Much love.
I flew up here because I said to myself, my friend calls, I'm coming. So I just
so
want to say
happy.
thank you.
This is so much better than Zoom.
Oh, thank you.
So my royal invitation is for 2 weeks. It's going to be our first show in May. And on May the 12th, we will welcome another dear friend of mine. That's him pictured there. He is a theologian. He is an educator, a coach, and a professional fundraiser. And his name is Mr. Vin Torti. Vin and I taught at Holy Trinity High School in Hicksville when we were 22 years old. And he taught religion and I taught history. And again, opposites. But we created a friendship and a bond, most of it built on laughter and fun, that has lasted over 40 years. And when I say to you that he is a spiritual caregiver, he is a person that I will call up and talk to about things that are upsetting me in the world. He travels to Israel often, and he will say to me, I'm going to be at the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall. What prayers do you want me to say for you and your family when I go? Like, it's immeasurable, the things that he has done. He works as a professional fundraiser, and the fundraising that he does is for schools and hospices throughout the metro area. But he also, for the last 7 years, he's since retired, has been fundraising for Holocaust survivors, as well as for orphans and the poor in places like Israel and the Ukraine. He and his wife, whom he calls the fabulous Sandy Torti, are both educators, and they live in Point Lookout, Long Island, and they are a family of givers and giving back and commitment and service, and that's going to be the mission, no pun intended, of the show on the first time in May. So I'd like to welcome all of you to that, because that's a special friend for over 40 years. So I close with, may the 4th be with you. And of course, happy Mother's Day, because that is part of the reason why we've also shared this bond. We've watched each other's children grow up and taken roles in their lives. So I will see you in 2 weeks at the next show, and I thank you very much. Have a good evening.